get started here. All right, go ahead.
Okay, it's 3:30 and time to call to order the Redevelopment Commission meeting on February 7th at 3:30 PM, meeting in the Angola City Hall. The next rule of order will be to do a roll call to make sure we have a quorum. Mark, are present? Present. Carrie Wilson?
Present.
John Cook?
Present. That's correct.
Charles Dow, that's me. Chuck. Eric Yoder?
Present.
And Kevin Beard.
Present.
And we also have Kim Schaub. Here. And Ryan Herbert.
Present.
And Jennifer Barclay.
I'm here.
And I see we also have one guest, Mayor Martin, who's going to join us for a little while. So that does confirm our quorum. And I think before we go into election of officers, just because we have a couple of new faces, I would like to just go around the table and introduce yourself. And if there's anything you want to say or have a question, because now's a great time. But Jennifer's going to be doing education for us. The mayor's going to talk a little bit about the vision for the group and the future activities. So with that being said, Eric, you want to kick it off?
Yep. Like you said, Eric Yoder, I'm going to hopefully be able to be involved more this year. We did 1 or 2 meetings last year and I'm excited about it. Work with Wagler Associates here in town, do development of projects and construction in the area. Enjoy working with the city and think this is a good opportunity.
Okay.
I'm Carrie Wilson, and I live just down from the hospital here in town. Mother of 3, worked for my church, Girl Scout leader. I'm just really excited to be involved for the first time with the city officially and interested to learn and hopefully be a part of it.
Okay. Now, speaking about learning, one of the opportunities we had last year, was it with the Purdue group to be citizen planners?
Yep.
And
There should be another one coming up this spring. They haven't
Okay.
released the date yet.
I took that course and it was rather lengthy in itself, but very educational. And it allowed you to get an education that would take you to many of the different offices within the city. So they offer things. That's good stuff.
Ryan Herbert, I'm the city clerk treasurer and the de facto redevelopment commission treasurer.
My name's Chuck Dow. Been in Angola over 40 years, raised family. Carrie said she went to school with our oldest daughter, Megan. That makes me feel old. Anyhow, I've been retired for 8 years and I look at being involved in this as a learning. And if any of my background can do anything good for anybody, then I'm glad to use it. So that being said.
I'm Mark Allen. I work at Farmers State Bank and I'm one of the executives of the leadership team there.
Kim Schaub. I've lived in Angola for 70 years. My father was city attorney before me, and I've been city attorney since 2000. And as such, I represent all boards and commissions.
I'm John Cook. I'm probably the other newbie here. I'm a professor at Trine. I moved to Angola about 10 years ago. When Dave was when the mayor was canvassing the neighborhood, we got to talking and I said I'd be willing to serve, and
That's cool.
here I am.
That's cool.
Kevin Beard, I'm the MSD representative. Work for Angola Wire here in town. I've lived here all my life. It's been interesting in the time that I've been on the board. When it first came on, they had very limited funds, like less than, I think it was like first report we had like 82,000 and it was just starting to build. And then now it's got to the point where we have some operating funds. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here.
I'm Jennifer Barclay. I've been with the city just over 2 years. I'm the Economic Development and Planning Director. So as such, this is one of the boards I work with. And just let the mayor go next too.
Yeah.
Dave, you want to
Mayor.
introduce yourself?
I'm Dave Martin. I'm the mayor of Angola. Pleasure to be with you and
will speak here in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So now we have on the agenda, next item was election of officers, president, vice president, secretary. Currently, I've been president. That was just last year, I guess. Who was our VP?
Mark.
Was it Mark? You remember?
I was the president before you, I think.
Yeah.
I think I was supposed to do it.
Okay.
VP?
And yeah,
Okay, because I didn't go
Very
back and
memorable.
look to see.
remember.
And our secretary has always been Jennifer or Rita, whoever. So we're at the point where we're at the start of the year, we have to nominate and elect the next set of leadership for the board, just because you have to have that. And so I guess I'm going to open up for president if there are any nominations. And there's nothing to it other than just what you're seeing right now. It's pretty simple. It's just running meetings and maybe if we have some initiatives that are brought about, a little bit of work, but it's not, nobody should be afraid of it. It's just a good way to learn. So anybody want to nominate anyone? Buddy?
Chuck, are you willing to do it again?
Like I said, it's not that bad. So yes, I would. Not that I want to, because I like to have things move around, but I would be willing to accept a nomination. Anyone else? Anybody want to second the nomination?
I'll second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, I will be the president for this next year.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. Now for vice president? I'd pester you again, but you served a lot of time doing different roles.
Yeah, I was the president before, so I think it might be somebody else's turn.
Yeah. Eric, you want to try it again?
Hey, I will do it again.
The only reason I say it is last year, like you said, you got busy and we didn't have a lot of initiatives going on. So
Yeah.
I'll nominate Eric Yoder for vice president.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? For secretary, I would like to nominate Jennifer again, of course. Any other nominations? Are any seconds for Jennifer?
I'll second.
Markula? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. All right, so we will move on. Next item on the agenda was the approval of the minutes from June 7th. Did everybody get a chance to look at everything? I looked through them too, and I thought it really did cover the essence for those of us that were on board at that time, what the meeting was about. I think it mentions in there a couple things. I sent Jennifer a note. One of them was that you were absent and here, but it was for Eric, was it? It was Eric that was absent and here,
Yeah.
but it was actually Mark that was here and Eric was
I got it
absent. And you got it
fixed.
fixed, but I did catch that one, went through it. The other one was he mentioned about the letter to JK Wilson, investments, and in regard to, they hadn't lived up to their side of the agreement, and we were asking the mayor and the Board of Works to go back and get the money back that had been spent. And that did all occur, as far as I'm looking for Jennifer, she's shaking her head. That all occurred. So that issue is closed as far as we know it at this point.
Correct.
So I only wanted to have that follow-up to that issue is totally closed.
Funds were recovered then?
Yes, JK Investments returned the funds. We ended up going with a different route as far as assisting with the development.
I've read through the minutes and I don't have any questions and I would make a motion to approve them as presented.
A second? Anybody?
Seconded.
John? All in favor? Aye. Nays? Okay, the minutes were approved. Okay. So did we have any old business, Secretary Barclay?
No,
I didn't think we did either. Everything was closed with that letter. So if there are no other thoughts about old business, we're going to go jump right into new business. And this gives Mayor Martin time now, Dave, that you can talk to us.
Well, thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. Carrie, welcome. John, welcome. Thank you for serving. Our citizen boards, we have numerous boards here at City Hall, really are the backbone of our government. It's part of the democratic process of how we do business. And I thank you all for volunteering to spend your time on this board. There are a couple of them that are particularly important, require significant responsibility, and do have significant power. This being one of them. The very few of our boards deal with fiscal matters and have money to disperse and collect and spend and determine the philosophy of how we will be doing development. This board is one of those. It isn't always very busy. I would like to have it to demand more of your time. It all depends on what is going on as far as development within the city. Last year, things were a little slow. We didn't meet a whole lot. I do have a number of initiatives I'd like to accomplish this year. One of them, I really want to put a lot of attention on developing our tech park, which is the substantial part or all of the part of your TIF district. We'll probably be looking at expanding the TIF district. The city has recently annexed some real estate in that area. The owner that has that has requested that we put them in the TIF district. We will be doing that going forward, looking at that possibility going forward. So you will be involved with that. Some of the headwinds that the city currently has on economic development, it used to be fairly easy. We would just worry about sewer and water and police and fire and where we can find extra ground to put a facility. Then we recruit somebody to come to town. It's harder now, primarily due to a utility company that we don't control. Natural gas has become very short supply in the city of Angola, and it is actually a stumbling block. The university, Trine University, the Cameron Hospital, the Judicial Center for the county has had to come up with significant amounts of money just to get gas available to them. It puts us behind the eight ball, but you can't move a university, you can't move a hospital, you can't move county government. They've got to stay here in town. Unfortunately, industrial development and businesses can be somewhat more mobile. And I've always been saying that if we can't attract them here because we can't provide them with the energy they need, electric and gas both, that capital is portable. There's no reason that a lot of these industries that we have in town can't back up a truck to their floating dock, pick up their equipment and move to another area. So that has now put us behind the eight ball. One of the advantages we have with the TIF district that we currently have, your district that you control, is we have some money in the bank. So if we need to offer an incentive to get a business or an organization to build here and expand here, we have some capital to do it with. That's what makes this board extremely critical. You're going to have to make the determination, is this something we want to invest in? Is this a good business for the community? And when you expand a TIF district, you need to look at the ramifications of how that affects other taxing units. It basically freezes, and you're going to learn about that this evening, it effectively freezes the tax revenue at its current state, and any incremental increase in growth now gets siphoned and comes to this board. What does that do to other taxing units? And those are the decisions you're going to need to make. That's one of the reasons the school board has a appointment to this board because that also affects how we do education. That's the industrial part of it, of what we're looking at. I'd also like to take a look at, and this is a little bit more prickly, I would also like to take a look at possibly residential areas, doing some tifting to get residential areas. Right now, doing development for housing is extremely expensive and it drives up the cost of housing. It makes it a barrier for people to buy homes. One of the tools that this board has is we can use TIF districting to lower the cost of development through bonding and infrastructure build out to help with the housing crunch that we have. That is another avenue I would like to take a look at and see if we can't make something happen to increase our housing stock, of housing availability. Housing now becomes much more critical because houses also brings kids. Kids also require an education. And so you can't hamstring our school system by doing this. So we need to keep that piece of the puzzle in mind. And that's why I said this is a very powerful board. Hopefully those are the decisions and some of the issues that we're going to have you face in the near future. Might not be this year. Right now we're seeing another headwind, which is uncertainty. Presidential elections bring a lot of uncertainty in the economy. And investment doesn't like uncertainty. They like to know what the plan is going forward. So we may see a little bit of lax or a little bit of lull in development and investment through this year until we get through the presidential election and we know what direction the people that are doing that investment know what direction the economy is going to take. So there may be some uncertainty this year. So we may not get a whole lot done this year, but hopefully in years to come, we will. And I'll be counting on this board and our other public boards, our planning, the BZA and so forth to make those things happen. But that's kind of where I'd like to go and give some food for thought for this organization. Jennifer's going to have a lot of education to give you on how a lot of this system works, and she can answer any questions. Why I'm here? Do you have any questions of me?
Just a comment. When you talk about the issue of natural gas, I'm only saying this for clarification, Dave, for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is not that natural gas does not exist in the United States being available. The issue is having it available to Angola
Getting it here.
to develop.
Our
Grow.
NIPSCO, which is our primary gas supplier. We have two electric suppliers. And electric isn't that far behind. We haven't had public discussions about it, but I don't believe we're going to have unlimited electricity going forward unless our utility takes steps to get us more capacity.
Same issue.
We haven't had the conversation yet, but it will be coming. Yeah. Natural gas. NIPSCO they're not a gas company. They're a transportation company. They provide the pipelines to get the product from where it comes into the system to the end user. The transportation system that our utilities has, NIPSCO has limited capacity. The road is only so big. The pipes are only so big. We're having a hard time getting gas here to the community without expanding capacity. You all saw this construction, I'm sure, last year down by the county line. They had along the old 27, they had a big equipment going and digging ditches. They were burying from a 6-inch line to a 12-inch line. You also saw the construction on the south side of town. It's a regulation station, what they call rig station they're putting in. There's a filter and a dryer and pop-off valves and pressure control valves. But what we go from down the county line is we now go for about a mile or two north with a 12-inch line, then it goes back to a 6-inch line. And then when it gets to the south side of Angola, it goes back to a 12-inch line. We're missing several miles. That has been a Band-Aid fix, extending that 12-inch pipe. And that's what the money that the end users have been paying, the university and the county and the hospital, that's what they've been paying, is to extend that line. They and NIPSCO helped fund that. And we may have to get to a position that if we want to put anything out by 69, we may have to come up with some money to help pay to extend that line further. But it's a capacity issue. It's not that the gas doesn't exist in the country. It's a matter of getting it to the end user. I'm working with an employer right now in town, and I found out about it in a roundabout sort of way. They're out in our industrial park out north of town. They want to do an expansion, and it requires a certain amount of energy to do that. And NIPSCO came back and told them, well, we can't do it for several years, and it's going to cost X amount of over $500,000 is what it's going to cost. Well, they back up and they say, well, wait a minute. If we move that facility and we put that facility up in Michigan, I can get the same thing up in Michigan for $45,000. So for the energy here, it's $500,000. Up there, it's $45,000. So now they're starting to look out of state. Okay. Once you start moving things out of state, now your economy starts going backwards. Our limited gas has stopped our ability to expand. But now we're starting to regress. We're starting to go backwards. I'm going to get that problem solved. I don't know how exactly we're going to do it, but I will get that problem solved. I'm not going to have that employer leave this community. We'll figure it out one way or another. But that's the issue that we're up against right now. I wish it was in a TIF district. I wish that building was in a TIF district where we had TIF revenue that I could help offset the cost and get them gas. They're not there. So we're going to have to find another tool to do it. But that's one of the headwinds that we're seeing as far as economic development in this community right now.
Yeah. I know it's hard to put a number to it, but how much in the last couple of years, how much business have we lost because of our inability?
Yeah, good question, Mark. Great question. Isaac could answer that on a countywide basis. The city, I can't put a finger on an opportunity that we've lost. We've lost some in the county, I'll tell you that. And Isaac could put a number on it. We have not lost one in the city that I can put a number on that I'm aware of. But like I've been saying, if you're not able to move forward, and we know we have not, we've lost opportunity county-wise. It's binary. You're growing or you're dying. There's no in between anymore. If you want nice, slow, steady growth, that's really what you're looking for. And if you can't have slow, steady growth, you're going to have a slow, steady decline. It's binary. You're growing or dying.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate you doing this. I hope to keep you more busy than we did last year. I can't guarantee that we will, but when we need you, we're going to need you.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for volunteering and thanks for serving. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Martin.
Thank you.
I'm getting used to that one.
Have a good evening.
For those of us that are sitting here and new, like Carrie and John, 4 years ago when I started, I was probably thinking the same things that you guys are thinking. What's this about? Eric probably thought the same stuff. What's this about? What do I have to do? It's a little bit, you see how important it all is. And when you start reading the information and hearing the education that Jennifer is going to give you, it's a little overwhelming. But then you start realizing, because Dave summarized it at the very end, as we find things to be developed, his staff will educate us on what they need to make it happen. Our role is to say as citizens, yes or no. Is this the right thing? Are they doing it wrong? Is it legal? Why we have an attorney? All those questions get answered. And we are the legal entity that allows them to move ahead. So nothing, you don't have to get freaked out. Everything will be delivered to you as needed. Yeah. That's what I learned. So it doesn't scare me about being a president because we're going to all come together and it's not that hard.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents. And let's see, we had staff review, Redevelopment Commission 101 training. That's you.
We can jump into that. I gave everyone some printed PowerPoints too, if you want to take notes. So we're going to go over a few things here. Just let's see. So, obviously this board exists because Indiana code allows it to exist. So I always like to give those reference, especially if you're nerdy like me and like to read them. You can always dive in there if you like. So basically the purpose of the Redevelopment Commission is to economic development, redevelop areas that you specifically see disinvestment or no investment happening there. So the membership, as you saw today, we have 2 council appointments, which is Chuck and Mark. It's right here. And then we have 3 mayoral appointments. And then Kevin here is our school board. He is non-voting, but still very much a board member. And Ryan, as he said, is the treasurer, and I am the secretary. So for council oversight.
Hey, Jennifer, before you go on out of membership, because the members that serve 1-year appointments, I wondered about that because Dave was the councilman that originally asked me to join. And he came back and asked me again. So with looking at the mayor, or will there be new council appointments next year then?
Well, that they get to decide that yearly. So,
Because I consider myself a mayoral
yeah,
appointment.
no, he,
Mayoral recruitment.
yeah,
Recruitment.
he recruited you for sure.
Okay, I know
Yeah.
it's just detail, but
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely, the council could decide that, we want a different appointment. I will say typically what happens here is the people that are on the board get asked to serve again. I see that across all the boards really
Okay.
for the city. That's not in every municipality, that's not the case, but it's typically what happens.
yeah, I was really just curious about the legality of what it's called and how it worked.
Yeah.
So there wasn't something that was wrong and then you find out later on that wasn't appropriate.
Yeah.
Opens up a can of
And
worms.
before I was even here, Tammy Anafrietti, the former mayor's assistant, did a lot of work figuring out all the appointments for each board. So I'm pretty confident she had it figured out. So, you do have council oversight. So that's something to keep in mind. So you have an annual budget that goes and gets approved by the council. We've never itemized that budget as far as I know. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are no budgeted expenses. for this.
Yeah. So you have action, you can issue bonds. We do declaratory resolutions and plans, and that's what had to be done for a TIF district to even be created to begin with. And you can enter into leasing. So there's some unique parts of this board that get really creative that you don't see a lot of redevelopment commissions using.
Are there any existing bonds?
They're not. So again, there's some oversight over the volume, like the amounts that can be approved as well. Conflict of interest goes the opposite way, I swear to you. Let's try this. So we do want to be careful of conflict of interest. So it's just something to be prepared for. Some potential conflict of interest on this board that I can tell you already now is Mark and Eric. As this board gets going, if Mark's involved in the financing of a project, he needs to be careful of that. Eric does a lot of building. So again, if there's any potential conflict, we need to be careful. And that's something as we get busier, we might see them want to come off, but on the planning side, there's a lot of value to having them on the board with their experience. So just something to be cognizant of. So really, this board's duties is, to investigate, survey, study our area, which we'll go through here in a minute. Think about the things that are preventing development. You heard the mayor talk about utilities. What else might be happening? So those are really the areas you guys are really going to focus on our current TIF district and potentially even expanding it. We do have reporting that's required. That's something Ryan really takes care of for us. It's not all that complicated, at least from my view. Ryan might disagree.
It's always easier on somebody else, right?
So just be aware, we do have to have a fiscal report that's filed, different things like that. So again, going into like your power, like what are things you can do? You can acquire property, like clear property, whole property, remediate, all these things, even go into leasing. You can levy taxes. We can do even like neighborhood programs. Wabash just is doing that as well with some residential areas to stabilize them. Indy has done that for years to try to stabilize neighborhoods. Some best practices, this is out of a guide, what they thought, here's a couple items to really pay attention to as board members. So it's just something to keep in mind as we go through things. So this is a poor graphic. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really love the graphic, but this will help explain it. So you have EDAs, or economic development areas. Those are the areas that we talked about that are needing some sort of investment or assistance. Those are the overarching areas. Then you have the allocation area. That's often what you hear to referred as the TIF. Those can be the exact same boundaries. They don't have to be. Ours is the exact same boundaries, but a TIF district can never be larger than the economic development area. Just keep that
And
in
these are
mind.
two different legal designations,
Mhm.
correct?
Yep. So your economic development area, it's areas that need investment, reinvestment. You have to have that plan I mentioned earlier of why it should exist. The designated body is you, legislative body is the council that has to approve that. And again, this is where you can spend the money. Allocation areas is basically where the money is being generated. You can also spend the money in there. So again, it's that incremental growth. The mayor hit on that. When the TIF district started, it said, here's your base value. The entities that get those taxes are going to keep getting those taxes. At the time that it gets improved, that incremental tax value is going to go to the TIF. And that's where that money sits instead of all those taxing units. So that is the money that sits in our budget.
Is it kind of in perpetuity, or is it time bound?
There is time bounds to it. So it is from 20 years on commercial TIFs from the day the bonds are issued. And we have not issued bonds. So that starts your clock ticking. On residential, which is a new thing last year, residential TIFs didn't exist before. I believe it's 15, if I remember right. So sources of funding for the revenue, you can see different levies. Obviously, when we issue tax abatements, this would be in your area if, say, they decided, which is almost kind of going back and forth, but sometimes it just works out better to do that. You can get basically some clawback from that abatement if you wanted to. So there's different circumstances you can kind of pull in more funding than just your EDA. Different expenditures. The biggest thing I think to take from it is you cannot use TIF revenue on maintenance. So if we had a property we acquired, we can't use TIF revenue to mow it. Different things like that. But we can use it to demo dilapidated structures, acquire property. You can even issue grants to schools. Then there's some parameters around that of how you can do that. Supervisory expenses, but the maintenance costs, again, I put it there, cannot be out of that TIF funds. Professional services, so if we want to hire, if to help us with the funding, a financial professional, or even help us with some planning. We can use that. New last year as well is TIF funding can go to police and fire operating expenses and capital expenditures. So that's something new last year that came out of state legislation. So those are just a few items there. Residential TIFs, again, this is new. There's not very many of them that exist across the state. So it is single family. That's something important to note. But so you do single family, and then a little bit differently is like condos and townhomes. They can be done. It's just a different process you have to go through. So they have a little bit of this gap from, you see, the 2023 to 2027, where they're not requiring some of this 1% test. And I'm not exactly sure how that ends up playing out, but it's just something we'll have to pay attention to if we decide to pursue a residential TIF. One of the things I want to point you guys to is this is our city website. I kind of tried to write it out here. It loads. So from our homepage, the easiest way is to go to city government, boards and commission, redevelopment. From the redevelopment page, you can hit this meeting documents. It will take you to our OneDrive. Let me back out. This OneDrive, I put all our resources in there so you can see our resolutions about our district itself, even some resources as far as handbooks that we use to help guide us as well. You can look, I pulled in our current map of, this is our current TIF district. So this is 6920. To give example, this is like Bill's Towing, Harris Apartments, to help you a little bit there. So that is our current TIF district and where we're at today. And allocation are both the EDA and the TIF. I threw in like our enabling ordinances just for reference, in case you want to read them. And then just the years in here. So obviously we're in 2024. I put in my department's last year's end of the year report for last year. If you guys want to read through that, obviously redevelopment was brought in there, but there's that. But one thing I think is important is for you guys to have a little bit of a beat on what's going through Plan Commission, which is what's approving developments. What we're seeing there, we also have an Economic Development Commission, which is different, but you guys have a lot of the same functions. So paying attention to those boards, which I kind of summarize in the annual report, I think is worthwhile just to pay attention to overall. Other than that, I mean, that's a quick overview. I'm happy to answer questions because I know that was a lot. But the biggest thing is just remembering we'll walk you through things as we work through some of them ourselves. And some of these sessions early on, we might be more planning, which we tried to do a little bit last year as well, of different items that we can pursue.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember for our board that really at this point, we are a reactionary board at this point. We are not like the Fort Wayne redevelopment board. So when you hear news about them and they're out setting up bonds and buying and demoing and doing, they have evolved to that. That wasn't something that just happened. And I think we have new blood in the mayor's office. And I think there's going to be a vitality around development. So patience, weed hopper. I think that's where we're at right now because we will be called upon. This guy isn't going to sit still. Mm-hmm. So that's my 2 cents. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Because right now you have Jennifer, you can ask her. And don't be shy. There are no.
So there's not currently a budget from the city council
There's not like an itemized budget. We have the money and we're gonna go through that with Ryan, our annual report, how much money we have.
Okay.
There's money in the TIF fund. There's currently not a working budget for
We
Weir.
never bonded anything?
No,
No.
no. And we haven't had to have a budget. There's a budget because you need to have that marker out
required.
there, but we haven't used money out of the budget. Go ahead, Kevin.
The major use of funds in the past was doing the signage on the bridge out at Highway 20 and 69. That took about 4 or 5 years to build up enough funds to do that work. And then now the funds have been building up again since then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the funds have come from, when was the TIF designated?
Let me pull up the ordinances, but it would have been in 2008. Kim, do you remember off the top of your head?
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it was around 2008 that the TIF was established.
So any increase in revenue over that level since then is what has contributed to it?
Yeah, so what you see new since then is the hotel, Bill's Towing, the terrace apartments. That's really it, right?
SOS. They had a new build back there too.
Okay,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
there are
you're
two
right.
SOS buildings.
Yeah,
Did the other apartment complex
it has a foundation in. They're starting to go vertical.
on the south of 20?
Oh, no, not the South of 20 yet.
Okay.
And these places all built without incentive or?
Correct. Yeah, without any influx of TIF funds. Yes, there were other incentives, but yeah,
But not from this board.
not from this board.
Right.
No.
Are you guys all, and I say guys, I apologize, but are you both TIF? Do you know what TIF means?
I have done a little bit of research on it, yes.
Okay, so you know the monies we're talking about then. Those monies can only be spent in the EDA that they were accrued in, correct?
Well,
Or
not quite.
For the most part.
Or
For the
something
most
that
part.
serves that area.
There you go.
Okay, but it has to be related to
Yes.
that area.
Yeah,
You can't go out and fix all the sidewalks in Angola with the money that's in the TIF account.
yeah,
Is a good way to say it.
correct. 2009, it looks like, is the declaratory resolution.
Because John's trying to get your head wrapped around what
Yeah, there's
this
some
thing is.
There's some contingency though to put it toward schools or.
Okay, well, what Dave was talking about was new EDAs, economic development areas that could be established and set TIFs up inside to build housing per se, which would then at some point, but it has to be worked with the school board. There's a lot of due diligence to do, but he was going to want to go there. He didn't mention that for no reason. I got it. I heard in my ear,
I thought that was foreshadowing.
Yeah, it is. So he's trying to figure out how to make that happen. And then we'll start getting involved as he does because we'll help him with due diligence, I would think, too.
If I understand it correctly, it would cause any increase in
Yep.
income that the school would see to get a gain later on as you have more
Correct.
housing units coming into the system.
But there's also this too, that this board can give a grant to schools as well. And that's something.
To make up for some of the difference you're speaking of?
Yeah, it's specifically for educational or worker retention training. So there is some leeway there as well to help with school.
And the whole idea is if you give the money to a school system, the monies are going to be in the school system. So you set up an EDA with a TIF district, you're allowed to use the money for development of the area to bring in the homes, the families, the kids, the jobs, whatever else is entailed in it. So it's taking money and moving it around to be differently utilized. So that's why we have to wait, because those initiatives aren't on the ground yet.
Can it be in an ETJ or has it got to be within city limits?
You can only operate within city limits. And to Eric's question, ETJ is an extraterritorial jurisdiction. So outside of this board, the planning side, we have corporate boundaries and then we have the ETJ. And that's where the planning office has jurisdiction, but the county still has the roads and different things like that. So it's this quasi area that we both operate in. So it's a little bit different, but the redevelopment commission, like your EDAs has to be corporate limits.
So if you were to do EDA, and this will get complicated, and we're reactionary, I completely follow that. But with the gas issue we have, can you do, that's not gonna help us. We couldn't do an EDA spider down a gas line.
Right, so
Is that
that
right?
would
Wouldn't get us very far.
fall more under that would help our EDA. So that's that little bit of gray
But that
area.
has to be, that project has to be within that
It does.
EDA.
No, not necessarily for that. So that's much more legally complicated, really, not Kim.
Yeah.
But yeah, it to redevelop ground, different things like that, definitely in our EDA. When you're talking about utilities that service the EDA, no. If that helps. Clear as mud.
There's a lot of collaboration that has to go on in many groups. Got it. Or one nub on the cog, or whatever. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? You guys will have a lot over time. Just start writing them down as you get them and then bring them to the next meeting is the best thing to do. Okay, we will move on then. And the next item on the agenda was the 2023 end of year, some of the simpler reports that Ryan puts together, right?
Yep. So attached is the report that I will also provide to the Common Council for the 2023 calendar year. You can see revenues received for the year, $167,862.41. No expenses paid. Fund balance at the end of the year, $748,893.20. Currently, there are no obligations and nothing was paid towards any obligations. So pretty simple.
And we don't have any initiatives at this time. Yep.
And the money that all the revenues received were all TIF capture from property taxes. So
It does appear that when we spend money, we spend it in kind of big chunks.
So, and that's something, I mean, to your point, Mark, like you can spend money straight out of it. You also have the ability to bond against this as well. So you're not spending down maybe all your funds. But that's something that might be advantageous depending on what projects we're looking at. So it's another way.
It's an option, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To get a sense of the history, are these in your files, Jennifer, going back several
I'll
years?
double check. At least the ones that I've been here for are
How long have you been here?
2 years. So, not very long, but I'll see if I can dig all those up.
Yeah, I just like a historical context.
Well,
It seems like
Ryan, how
moving
much
very slowly,
down?
but in large chunks.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
how the revenue is down. We talked about
the
this.
revenue was actually down this year. Yeah.
Yeah,
So looking back at that, for 22 paid 23 property taxes, we actually had significant net assessed value growth within the city, which led to lower tax rates. So probably what happened was the net assessed value within the TIF area didn't grow as fast as some of the other areas in the city, which contributed to that growth. So the property tax bills were actually down a little bit for people, for the properties on the TIFs.
Is that because they were able to get the same reduction in rates, but the values didn't go up? So
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
I'm sure it's been higher, but just on the time I've been on the board, that $700 and some $1,000 balance we have is about as high as I can remember.
That probably is about the
yeah.
highest it's
The
been.
overall balance
Yeah.
probably is.
We just in the last couple of years really started capturing the hotel in the TIF area, which is the majority of it. And actually this year we didn't even capture the full value of the new Bills development out there.
Yeah.
We won't see the full capture from that until we get distributions this year. So the property taxes run about a year behind. So
Jennifer, do we need a motion to accept this?
Remind me, Ryan, do you remember?
I don't know that you.
I know we do one on the consideration and action regarding excess.
Yeah, I
Sure,
think that's
notice,
the
but-
only thing.
Okay,
I think the financial report is what.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
okay. All right, we move on. If that, everybody's okay. All righty. The next item is also Ryan's to talk about.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think that actually needs to be struck from the agenda.
Sorry about that.
we
That's supposed to go to next month.
Yeah,
Okay.
we accomplished that a little later in the year that.
Oh,
That's my fault. I
This letter
forgot to
still
take
needs
it
go
off.
out tomorrow.
okay. So that'll go into new business or next agenda.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was my fault.
That's all right. So what happens, members, Ryan will talk about this particular point and then we'll create a motion to accept it as what he states and move on. But it's going to be tabled until the next meeting since it hasn't occurred yet. Got it. Okay, I think we're down to point number 8, which is other. Did you have others? Anything in other?
I have a few items. It can go in other reports. It doesn't really matter. So one of the things Dave brought up, and it's just something to keep on your radar here, is this is our current TIF. Kevin, do you mind passing that? And I outlined in blue the potential area that he was talking about adding to the TIF. The city last year did annex past Love's. Don Wise and his dad own this property, all of it, and they wanted it to be annexed in. And now they would like it to be added to the TIF. Don also owns this property as well. There's several properties there. And he would like those to be considered to be part of the TIF. I know the mayor and I are going to sit down with him to talk more about why he's wanting this, his
Well,
plans.
that's what I wondered. Is Don going to be the contractor or the developer in the case of the blue area?
I don't know.
I mean, he has to have a motive there to point.
Right, yeah. And Don's also a real estate agent. He owns a lot of
Yep.
grounds.
Or he's got
Yeah.
some thought then somewhere in
Yeah.
the future.
So,
Know what the dirt's being moved for on that area?
I don't know.
They started to scalp something.
that was Don. Yeah. So we'll talk to him more about that, but that may be something that comes up this year for you guys. So I just wanted to give you a heads up about that as well. Some other things we talked about last year was, north of the high school along US 20 being good for residential. Those things are all still on our radar. We haven't really got much further with them as far as finding someone to be the land developer. So that's a potential for a residential tip out there, or maybe even some commercial, depending how that really falls into what properties someone really wants, how that ends up
North of
going.
20
Yeah, north of 20.
by 100 east.
Mhm. There's a lot of ground out there, and it'd be, from a utility perspective, it'd be great to loop some of our utilities. And it might help out overall. Like those farmers that own that ground are getting older and they might be interested in selling it off. But that's really up to like a land developer to get involved there. We'll just make introductions as far as my office goes. So there's potential along there. We've talked a little bit about downtown as well, some different redevelopment projects. Is it appropriate for TIF in that area or is it not? We've talked about that in the past. The other one we didn't really explore last year or since I've been here with this board is the state is working. It's more than likely going to happen, but they're still in design phase. So you don't want to say it is happening. Is running water and sewer to Pokagon. Our water and sewer. So that's going to be going north of town. There's a lot of ground there that potentially could get developed if there was a desire for it, especially if utilities are getting ran. So that's another area to focus on as well for potential growth and what could it be.
How far do you go out north though?
They haven't decided exactly where they're crossing.
No,
yet
how far
right
does the
now.
city go?
Basically the water tower. So that's again the ETJ. So you're talking about
That's what I'm
annexation and yep. Mhm. Yep.
Any competition from Fremont coming in from 120
As far as city boundaries,
as far as servicing Pokagon or
But you won't-
that?
there's
It
no
won't happen.
competition.
the state
will
is
not do it.
basically saying, because they went to the sewer district, they went to Fremont, they went to us, they've had these discussions for a couple of years.
They went to the
Had
big
that
sewer
discussion
district
there already.
already. They're too big for them? or-
I don't know all the reasonings, but they ultimately decided,
Sometime.
yeah. They ultimately decided it was going to be in Cola. They wanted to run out there. So again, it's a long line. So the more taps onto that drawing, the better for the water quality. And that's the issue we have going out to the school as well. We want to see more taps along that for water quality. So just utilities kind of driving the growth a little bit. So those are some things in the future. The other item we kind of already talked about was the JK investments that they did, just pay back the money, and everything is closed out for this board as far as that goes. That's all I had.
Any push going south at all?
I foresee that, yes. So you have the trail that we got funding for coming basically from Commons Park all the way down Old 27 to Pleasant Lake. It's part of the Poggy Trail. Typically what you see is investment in areas around recreation, the trail. As far as redevelopment along there, I think it's all potential. Within the city limits or even outside the city limits, it doesn't necessarily have to be the city that's doing that. But I think it creates a big opportunity for the county, Pleasant Lake, us, to consider our options along that corridor as well.
I've always thought, I mean, it's just my opinion, but I've always thought that makes the most sense with all the land and
Yeah. Yep.
That's why it's not happening, Mark.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then with the election year, I got what Dave said, that
Yeah.
there might be a little bit of a pause right now for anything big.
Yeah, I don't see people pulling the trigger, but and I told you a little bit before, you see a lot of small investments, which is fine, but you see a lot of people planning too. A lot of questions being asked and potential viability of different projects. So it becomes much more of conversations happening and waiting to see what might happen as far as the election and interest rates. So.
Okay. Was that it for reports too for you?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions before we leave Jennifer on that? On the report side, were there any other reports from officers and members?
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ryan, you've already done your thing.
Hold up.
Jennifer, you're all finished?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think if I have a motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion.
Eric, a second?
Seconded.
John? All in favor? All right. Aye. Any nays? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
John, what subject do you teach?
Thermal sciences.
What?
Thermal sciences?
Thermal sciences.
So natural gas pipeline.
That's on your alley, huh?
Right on my alley.